Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 9.11. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Love to see you around more often. And of course, if you just help me out a little bit by hitting that like button, also helps you out too, because it tells YouTube the type of things that you want to see, so it'll show you more of this type of content, and it helps out me with a greater visibility for these videos, so thank you. Alright, well, we're going to continue this here. Now, I just got done a few minutes ago, did other tweaking in between, just tweaking by as in deploying stuff, I have not been modding anything here. Tested that if I were to go to war with China now, I would get one of those, get the fishing fleet decision, so that I can get some of the transports to be able to do some of the naval invasions, and they're almost completed in the production, which I presumed if we were going to get those. Yes, we want to improve relations with these two. Oh, we're going to wait. I think we'll get coal coming in from, a few places. So, I'm going to continue with my research and whatnot to get better landing craft. But I'm not going to wait on that entirely. We're obviously, because right now we could do the, oh, come on, the Marco Polo Bridge incident. Okay, and I deployed these guys, start getting them ready. Rebase down to here. I'm going to pick up some Marines. See how much this assault ship can hold. Romania, okay. Now there is a DLC for Hearts of Iron 3 called, what is it? Des Ira Gata Damorong. Normally just shortened down to DIG. Now what it did, or one of the things it did, is it allowed destroyers and I think light cruisers to carry units, but they had very low transport rates, so that if you were to try to stick get like, oh, I don't know, 4 destroyers together and stick a division on it, full proper division on it, it wouldn't carry it, wouldn't at all. But if you were to say put a just one brigade, because even though the men here are a factor, but all of these units have, where is it, somewhere in here, but maybe it's not saying, no, oh, here it is, weight, this unit has 8.5, where this unit has a weight of 8. Okay, now these are of course mountain guns, pack artillery, so they have lightweight. 15. This is transport weight, as it's not how heavy the thing is, but how much, how difficult it is to carry something. So, I think it's here we have our, yes. Here, this guy, railway artillery, this guy has a weight of 1,000, so it needs a big proper ship. Now I think they may have had larger until we did the garrison deployment division, and these guys also are designed to have very heavy weight when now it's down to 20 where it should be, but it's designed to have a very heavy weight, so that the AI doesn't start deciding, oh, let's send all these garrison divisions to go fight in China or something. And like here, these artillery will have a weight of 45, not as bad as a huge railway gun. But so that you could, no long ways to get there, so that you could do Germany, because Germany did use destroyers and whatnot to do some of the invasions for up here in Norway and whatever, and that was what it was done to simulate, so that either you got a whole lot of destroyers together, or you sort of just broke out and what's the weight here? Because we were looking at it 8.5, 25. So regular artillery here is weight of 25. So where it was for the Marines, obviously that's going to be lighter than an infantry unit. But you know, so that you could do an invasion. I just was sort of thinking of this when I was seeing here, and thinking, yeah, that was sort of specialized for Germany doing that. But then I thought, well, you had the Tokyo Express. Where is it? The map is right. Is this it? Guadalcanal. Yeah. I like that. I like that. Yeah, compared to, because it's all, this is jungle, but I like that. That's obviously some sort of modern photo or photoshopped or something of a skull, a helmet, a bit of a shovel or something there. But the Japanese were sending in reinforcements and then withdrew the great bulk of their surviving troops. Lost a lot of troops, they did, but their surviving troops out by primarily on destroyers. So there is real precedent of using destroyers as alternative invasion forces, and for the Guadalcanal campaign, the Japanese that were reinforcing in here, although they sort of held the northern portion of the island, it was coming across beaches. They weren't going into any sort of harbor type situation, so we could see that as a thing. Okay, artillery barrel and ammunition. Okay, let's do direct fire unit control. And yes, I do believe we could. Start World War, or no, not World War, but start the war with China now, and do okay. But I just want to be more prepared. It may be just my thing. It may be, you know, in all these playthroughs, I know some of the players, you know, some are mod makers, some are, you know, just players that really want to like hit the historical dates, or within say 5 days or so of like the invasion of Poland or the Marco Polo Bridge incident, because they sort of want to play the game in the sense of, well, this is sort of, you know, the major realities of it, you know, how good can we get Germany's army by X date. Where I like to play it because I know there's both long-term viewers here and new viewers here. I like to play within the historical realities, but not necessarily have to make all the mistakes they made in World War II. And so looking at dealing with Poland, we know it starts the World War. Now, Germany wouldn't have done it then, and if I waited until the more likely historical start date, 42 or so, and the game sort of sucks because it's not modeled, you know, world politics, internal politics, and other things like that. If you play that long without going to war, so things really become skewed. And so I don't do that, but what I do, as you often see, is wait till sort of spring 1940, because you think because the Soviets are going to be pushing from the other side, you're going to have a fairly short war with Poland, so going to war in basically the fall in Poland, okay, you can do that. And it was a real rushed affair. I've read, at least I've not gotten through, I just sort of skipped over to reading a lot of stuff about the Pacific, but I was reading some of Hans von Luck's autobiography, or whatever you want to, his autobiography, his book, and how much of a rushed affair that Poland was. It was more like, oh, you mean we've got 10 days and we're going to war, or whatever. I mean, it was that kind of thing. And what can we get ready now that was ready on sort of the Polish theater, there? What can we dig up? What can we get, functional at that moment? It was very haphazard. It was pushed that way and such. So why do that when you know that you're going to have war in the West too? So it would be better to do a fast smash with your motorized forces, and make sure your motorized forces are on the Polish border and whatnot. And then once you do that, shift all your your great bulk of your army back west, and you can do that very quickly. And then still in that, if not spring, early summer of 40, smash into, do sort of the fall Gelb thing and smash into France. And that would be, because you don't need that phony war, the Sitzkrieg. That is a silly thing. It's sort of necessary because the Germans weren't ready, because again, they weren't ready for the war with Poland. They had to get ready. And then they sort of needed to, I say that. This isn't quite the 18th century or before, that if you start moving troops around Europe in winter, they're going to all start dying on you. Because that's sort of the kind of things that would happen, because troops weren't, we can look at dysentery, from, if you don't have latrines for your soldiers and you have lots of people in a close space, you're going to get spread of disease very rapidly, because there's lots of soldiers. You want to keep them very tightly close to each other so you don't lose them. Not that they're all going to desert, but they're all going to maybe go over the hill to the next village and look for food or women or drink or whatever it is, and they'll be back in a couple of days. They're not quite like deserting, but they're and just enough of them that you would lose, and even they may be just like foraging for more food, and have and trying to collect food for the rest of their troops, but you sort of lose troops, and they may be back, but And so if you're moving that, and if the ground is too cold to dig latrines in, because it's frozen, or to do it quickly and rapidly and enough for all of the troops, and they don't have, not every soldier had shovels. Very few soldiers had shovels back then in the 18th century, and very many armies didn't even have proper engineering corps. They had maybe a few engineering type officers and tried to either hire local peoples to do labor or put the soldiers to it, but so an engineer with a wagon full of shovels and picks, but how are you going to spread them all out, get all the stuff dug, and then put it all back in the wagon and move it when you need lots more labor to dig through frozen earth than you do unfrozen earth. So it's not quite the 18th century where you're really going to take significant attrition just simply by moving in the winter. But hey, clearer weather means clearer skies, so your fighters and your bombers can work better. It means road conditions are better for all your trucks, etc., etc. Things are better, and we can see, both the Watch on the Rhine or whatever, but the Battle of the Bulge, the German Ardennes offensive and the Allies counteroffensive, including, I gotta say this, Patton's brilliant, he's pushing into the enemy while in the face of the enemy he makes, I believe it's a left turn, moves across the front of the enemy, and then smashes into the side of the bulge, and does all that very rapidly through the snow. And there's I haven't read a lot about it, but a little bit. It's a very difficult for the tank drivers and all this stuff to operate through that rough terrain, through the snow. And of course, they, so both sides, the Germans and the Americans, the Germans had a successful attack or counterattack or whatever you want to call it for the Ardennes offensive. It didn't succeed in that they took their objectives and got to, what was it, Antwerp, and cut the armies in two and captured huge amounts of supply. It wasn't successful in that sense, but they had surrounded Bastogne. They had pushed much deeper than Bastogne. They were, doing all of that. That part was successfully done, and they just ran out of steam, if you will. And then the Allies, mostly Americans, but the British did help, were able to do a counterattack. So both sides were able to do a brilliant and intense battle in the heart of winter in Western Europe. And I think it was a reasonably cold one. I don't know. Not going to make any hyperbolic statements like the coldest one in 10 years. I don't know. But it was a cold winter. It wasn't some sort of mild winter. And so they were able to do that quite well. And you can look at one of really good, probably one of the best early, war movie that sort of does it well, that's really doing, not maybe Saving Private Ryan or The Band of Brothers, but which those two could, getting the sort of realities of war and what World War II was actually like. But it was Battleground. And you see the frostbite and the other attritions going on in that aren't directly combat related for campaigning in the winter. And you start putting in the 18th century, it gets worse. So you don't need to do a just before winter offensive like they did. So I very much, and I'm sort of just getting a long way around here, but and this is what I'm looking at, this Marco Polo Bridge incident. The Japanese very much wanted to, well, like I've been saying, there were constant incidences. I think more or less by this time, 37, most of the incidences along the Soviet border had stopped. I don't know so much about the Mongolian border, and you have to realize, especially here, but even down in here, there isn't like some, fence or wall. But and I sort of, the Americans, build the wall. We need to build the wall. Trust me, it's important. We have barbarians invading us. They're not carrying swords and, well, they are cutting people's heads off, and they do have machetes, and they're called MS-13. And we round them up and send them back to El Salvador, and they're back 30 days later. So, yeah, and I recently, I think it was in Texas, news article within the last day or so of me making this, they'd cut some girl's head off in Texas. Yes. So yeah, so they are barbarians. Now of course people, but that's it's a small minority of people. Yeah, and actually most of the people, I do believe most of the people now coming across the border are not from Mexico. They're from El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, and other Central American countries that are failing. Nicaragua is failing miserably. I mean, it's almost becoming a failing state. And as these countries spiral into chaos down here, and there's millions and millions of people live in these countries. El Salvador is very small, but it's very densely populated compared to particularly Honduras and El Salvador. Much of Honduras and El Salvador is mountainous, jungly type stuff that most people don't live in. And Guatemala is somewhat that way. But for the size, this sort of like, there's a lot of mountains and jungle here too, but this is sort of like premium land or something, so it has a very high density population. But particularly these countries here, this is failing because of socialism. These are various other failings. They're flooding into America. And the governments down here like this for a couple of reasons. Well, one, MS-13, I think the government feels that, well, we can get rid of our bad people by having them go to America, so they won't bother us. But they like it because their excess people are leaving, so it's no longer a problem that they have to worry about. 1. 2, they go to America and often send money back to their country, so it helps them. 3, and particularly we're seeing this in Nicaragua right now, it's just really hard for Venezuelans to get up through here because Panama, this part of Panama here, at least at one time, was, even though it's connected by land, it was part of Colombia. There was no basic human way to get from what becomes Panama to the rest of Colombia. Again, yeah, some sort of super difficult jungle trek you could, but there was zero road, there was zero trail, there was, to get to this part of then Colombia, you had to take a boat. You know, so before airplanes were at least a common thing. Because Panama Canal is finished in 1914 at the start of World War I. So yeah, they had aircraft by the end of that, and the U.S. created Panama. The Panamanians wanted to be independent because of these various things from Colombia. So it wasn't U.S. imposing, it was more like, hey, would you like rise up and be independent if we have our fleet come and off the coast and make sure that the Colombians can't send an army to crush you, and we'll recognize your independence once you do so? And they go, yes, please. Oh, we're going to build a Panama Canal through it and make you very wealthy. Oh, yes, please, very much, please. But it was definitely a U.S. thing. It wasn't a U.S. It was obviously U.S. Kept the Colombian military from being able to. And it was that bad that you just think it was mostly on the Atlantic side at the time for the Colombians. But the U.S. made sure that there was no amphibious type abilities to respond to Panamanian independence by the Colombian army. So I think it's very hard to get Venezuelans to stream up. I presume there's some roads here now, but it's something that can easily be blocked comparatively to some of these other borders. And Costa Rica and Panama are actually, my understanding, fairly well off now. Panama is much better that you got rid of Noriega, much more of a stable country. And Costa Rica has long been a bit of an oasis in the region as well. So these countries are going crazy, and they would sort of like to have their, in Nicaragua, their malcontents leave. And the malcontents, if they think they can get a better life, will flood into America. We can only take so much people. You know, help out the refugees. And then they go, and people say, well, and there is a, I don't know if it's an international law or a UN, you know, sort of agreement or whatever, but it is basically saying that you must take in and help refugees from other countries. And this is what some of these people point out for that the Americans should do so. Now, there's two things wrong or two things with that. One, okay, take in the refugees, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they get to flood in and go out throughout your country. It's often like you see in places like Jordan and other places, they set up big, massive camps along the border and contain the refugees in. And as they, you know, because often there's a big flood of people and there's no preparation for them, but as time goes on, in better and more humane conditions, you know, so they're contained, that the idea that they're going to go back to their country once the crisis, whether the crisis is because there's an earthquake or some other, you know, famine because of not enough rainfall or whatever it might be, or civil war or an invasion from another country, whether it's man-made or natural places, you're supposed to take in and help the refugees. One, okay. And two, as part of that basic statement, and I know I'm butchering it, it says the first country that they can get to. Well, if you're in El Salvador, the first country is going to be Honduras, well, no, Guatemala or Honduras. Okay. But even if you're talking about, if all of these are too dangerous, the first country would be Mexico. So you should be setting up refugee camps down in Mexico. There is all these people that are showing up on the borders and saying, in my country, MS-13 is threatening to kill me. I had to flee. Okay, good. You've made it to Mexico. They speak Spanish in Mexico. You speak Spanish. Have fun in Mexico. Mexico can, set up camps. And, of course, we're talking about Japan, and they definitely have camps in Japan. But camps got a bad name in Germany and other places. Camps that you can voluntarily leave, not leave to go running about the country in, but leave to go back to your home. There is no bad thing about those kinds of camps. Camps that you're not allowed to leave. Now, barbed wire around the camps is just so that we know who's leaving and who's coming in, and what's going on. And I could see a reasonable, don't know what that amount would be, but a reasonable amount of U.S. government support to support camps in Mexico for refugees from south of Mexico. That'd be fine. And the reason I would want to do that is because those people come to that camp and then sit there. And if we can build appropriate shelter, and if we can feed them, they get to sit there. How many generations are they going to sit there until they decide, those that are able-bodied enough and capable enough? So I'm not thinking a mother with 2 babies, but maybe the father, maybe somebody else, can go back home and solve the problems at home. Whether it was a natural disaster, rebuild their country. Whether there's a civil war, pick a side, join it, and get that side to win the civil war. Whatever it is, solve the problem. Then you can bring your people home. But if all the refugees think, wow, we can get a better life here, they're never wanting to go home. That's the problem. That's why I, and I just earlier today got another posting about one of my rants in the British series about how much I love Churchill. And I didn't address, well, you should look at his war crimes and whatever. Yeah. I'm not going to dispute any of the bad things you want to say about Churchill, because Churchill did bad things. That isn't the point. But he says, so I'm disagreeing with your rant, but I'm very, I'm enjoying your series and I'm going to continue to watch it. And I basically I'm really glad to hear that you're going to continue watching and you can listen to things that you disagree with. So I am not trying to convince everyone to agree with me, but I'm trying to explain that yes, people that want to stop mass immigration to the U.S., notice the word mass, not just immigration, but mass immigration to the U.S., isn't because we're heartless and don't care. We want to have solutions that fix the problems, not, oh, well, you have a problem down there. Well, you can ignore that problem. You can just come to America. That's the kind of thing. It's sort of like going back to the problems of the breakup of Yugoslavia, That was a terrible thing. Ethnic cleansing, particularly the way they did so by killing people, is not a good thing. But once it's over, once the country's boundaries are redefined, oh, here it is, I'm just looking for that, then the people should go home. And then rebuild Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, whatever it is, instead of living in, I don't know, in Austria or Hungary or whatever the border country that they may have fled to during the fighting. See, that's, what the people who oppose this kind of stuff want to have happen. At least I do. And yes, you can always find some ridiculous person who has some ridiculous short barrel stuff and go, point to, here is some, because I periodically see stuff, but some sort of woman is, white woman is screaming some racist things. Yes, you're always going to hear, you're always going to be able to find somebody. Well, we at least have 2 units of support tanks, and we may build more. So we'll do that. Improve that. So yes, you can always find some nut job somewhere. So no, we're not gonna feed the 33 because that'll. Okay, so we now have a good, moderately fast motorized support unit, or not support, but I was thinking motorized support there, but and we're going to send the headquarters over here, attach them to one of our. Okay, Marine HQ's great. But the big thing here is reduce forces. I think it's a half an hour per level because this is 0 hours and it won't show, if it's less than 1. And since that's 1 hour, so the next one would be 1 hour. So all of these help with the delays between attacks. That is sort of for me, the big sort of push for that. And yeah, let's grab that. Oh, that's pretty nice. Okay, picture is what I'm looking at. As you know, I judge all the pictures. Well, I will of course say if I really think something sucks and why I think it sucks, but sometimes things that I think suck look good, but no, I know this one we're not going to end that yet. But just don't, and because we've deployed a few more units, we need a little more consumer goods. Reordered some of this to get done, and building some air bases. Just not enough forward air bases here. Okay, United Kingdom will no longer receive money for fuel. And we're still producing more supplies than we need. And this is back to that. Good. We got most of our coal and that. We're doing these two rares. And we'll be able to, I think once we're really sort of abandoned by most of the countries, be able to capture rares down in Malaya and such. Okay. Well, let's get some armor unit training going. Help that out a bit. I've thought about building ports, but okay, which one? Okay, night combat training. That I believe is thought that was was that a oh, here, down here. Okay. We're gonna stop that partially because it's a 38. There's a bunch of other 37s, and we're not going to forget the Navy, but we're looking to go into war with the Chinese first, and I'm, okay, they got some ships here. Good, they did have ships. Most of their Navy was down here, though, at the time, because this is where their capital was, and this was their main sort of capabilities. And we have motorized HQs. Yes, we'll take that. Again, that pumps us up. little more range finding equipment. Very good. Artillery. It's really important to know how far away the enemy is when you're shooting particularly indirect guns. Direct fire, that is. Okay. Yeah, we're doing pretty well there. That would be helpful. Okay, Canada, you want some fuel? You can have it. Keep up our balance of trade. Armored cars. That's looking pretty good. Well, we're still in positive territory for actual supply production. And this Bethel stock tick has advanced. And that gets stopped. Yeah, none there. Okay, doing medium. Well, a little more soft attack, a little more hard attack. Yeah, we're gonna do heavy for these. No, do they affect? No, it doesn't affect speed. Good. And artillery carriage design. So now our motorized will have heavier stuff than our regular, but that's good, I think. And yeah, I do believe I have 2 of these in production here and 2 more down here once we get through a few of these other things. But I'm thinking September, maybe into December, but September we're looking at probably the likely start date. Get these air bases built. Okay, naval HQs, very good. Okay, yeah. We want destroyer escorts here. Those are important. Okay. The Soryu. So, oh, let me see if I got it there. It's Soryu. Soryu is how you would break that up. I'm still butchering it somewhere. Okay. These larger carriers, and maybe more than I know, definitely, and I'm seeing here, some of these things here very well may be designed to be nets that come up to catch airplanes, so that an aircraft coming in here would come in here and then would lower their tail hooks and catch on some of the wires back here and land, but these are like crash barriers or whatever, so if they come in and don't catch right or whatever, we get into sort of these big sort of industrialized cable type nets that would be raised, that kind of thing. So you could have some aircraft sitting here, and these here that are up are designed so that when the aircraft, and you may be able, maybe wide enough to get two of them here, are revving their engines to get full power up, the air is being pushed, shooting up like that and taking off. I don't know if the Japanese ever used, I don't think they did on their carriers, but I don't know for sure. Catapults. The US were doing catapults for World War II, but yeah. These are pretty big and pretty good carriers for their day. Yeah, we're down to 40 some here because of this upgrade, but we want to get the upgrades done. Depending on what the upgrades are, they can be done fairly quick. Okay, we now have government secretary's focus, and I think we're at the 50-50 stage. Yes. Okay. Well, supplies, money versus extra money. I think we'll go with that now. Don't know which one won out, but yeah. No longer getting that from Canada. Deep battle doctrine has advanced. Very nice. Okay, so we've got 3 Marine divisions here. Will they all fit onto that? No, 2 of them will. 2 of them may be enough to take, because my first goal, I think, is to come after here. Qingdao, that had been the German concession there. Okay, we'll take a little money for some fuel. And that would get us a, well, I don't know how big a port, but a reasonable sized port, I think, to do there. And at minimum, we'll be able to hold it, because whether it's here or here, with 2 provinces wide. Now, I will want to, and one of the reasons I haven't moved more of this army out, I will want to take some of these guys, the sort of regular divisions, and quite possibly those divisions, the motorized ones, and reinforce the invasion. and then get the Marines out to do other invasions. But coming from here would help set up creating a better pocket or additional pockets. Artillery unit training advanced, very good, and so we gotta wait for that presumably to get to that. Well, Japanese really did have the battle fleet concentration doctrine down. Don't know exactly how they're thinking, because that was, they wanted to concentrate their fleet, have the big showdown. Huff duff. They understood that in their bones. They were Mahanians in their bones. Well, let's see if we can sell some more supplies to the US. US seems to like buying supplies. They're negative some supplies. How far are we down? 30 some. So let's see if we go max out 50 supplies to the US. Looks like we got that. Okay, artillery unit command and control. And that should allow us to stop that and start that. Great. Good shifting. Okay, motorized engineers. And good, those do go quickly. And I don't think we'll get to any of the other ones. Yeah, I know I was talking. Well, let's take a quick look here. We're waiting on this to get medium armor. I think we're going to ignore things like the assault guns, not the amphibious. We may very likely do that. And we may just ignore the tank destroyers as well. I just don't really see using too much of those. And I'm doubting, well, super heavy, I don't think I've ever done that. Built any actually, but so unlike Germany, we're not going to, normally when I play Germany, I ignore the infantry support and do most all of the rest. You know, we're not going to build the Japanese version of the Tiger. Closest thing will be better infantry tanks. Okay, let's look at our well, let's start researching that. And yes, they accepted our request to sell more goods to the US. Yeah. All of the supplies going out are taking they take the other countries' shipping totals, so small amounts are not harmful for our overall available transports and such. So I'm very happy to do small amounts when they requested. Military police advance, because you can't do less than one ship. That is here. Oh, we'll let that continue. It does help garrisons. We have a bunch of garrison troops, and some will become frontline, defensive, and supportive attacks, meaning, you know, attacking with a proper infantry division. And to say if some of these guys are also on, you know, just happen to be on the front line, they'll support an attack. But most likely won't be doing too much actual offensive, but they'll be useful, and we want to keep them moderately well organized. And we'll no longer receive some money from Mexico. Okay. Oh, we've got way too many spies. Okay. And way too much diplomacy. Man, I haven't been paying attention there. Okay. Oh. Gotta undo it, because that's where I wanted it to go. Yeah, we're gonna zero that out. Now, since we've got the spies, we are trying to steal ground technologies, mostly from, I would say, Germany, but let's also... Oh, wait a minute, do we have... I know we sent those... Oh, that's why we're not getting any. Damn! It doesn't... Just, we didn't get any, so we'll do tech espionage. I forgot to do that. My fault. And US, we need to come down here and do tech espionage too. So I should have been doing that. I messed up. Now let's see if we get some more techs. Like I say, I'm hoping to get, and I wouldn't mind getting, won't maybe be very useful, but I wouldn't mind getting more, you know, like a heavy armor tech from Germany. Just probably won't be building any. And we'll do that. Get these two longest. We sell a little more. Okay, teeny bit more. Broadcasting sort of nice. See, these are already going down in big chunks. Okay, the trains run on time in Italy. I don't know if they've yet really run on time, but that's another question. Okay, formation of the 2nd Army Corps. Your Imperial Highness, shall we form the 2nd Army HQ near Tokyo? Historically, the Japanese 2nd Army was raised on August 23rd, 1937, and was placed under command of the Japanese Northern China Area Army as a reinforcement to Japanese forces in China following the Marco Polo Bridge incident. The 2nd Army participated in the North China incident. Taijin Pukuo, or Kou Railway Operation, Battle of Zhuzhou, I don't know these Chinese things, and the Battle of Taizong, before being demobilized on December 15, 1938. The 4th and final incarnation of the Japanese 2nd Army was on July 42, when it was revived under the command of the Japanese 1st Area. Minchuko, it was transferred to the Japanese 2nd Area Army towards the closing stages of the war. Okay. Yes, let's do that. There we go. Okay, so it's vigorous is sort of the idea here, that we have this cool HQ as opposed to just okay, we can still form Meijing, Mangjang, and Imperial Navy HQs. We need this. Yes. Imperial Navy base. Okay, good. We're going to, okay, hold on. That's basically the air. Because all of the ships, I guess, are directly under this. The Nihon, whatever. So we'll attach currently to there. And let's go down here. Maybe they haven't made us a bunch of admirals. It doesn't look like it. Well, dead incident, definitely a medal for the army. Really wish they would have done a square Japanese flag instead of squishing a rectangle into a square. I don't know if I'm gonna... I don't know which is worth me every time I look in here aggravating over that, or trying to mod in a new flag symbol for the medal here. It says Japanese General. Okay, well, we don't have a good set of naval leaders. All you really have to do is take the info from a bunch of these guys and create a land version of them that suck as a military, you know, reduce their skills and whatnot, so you're not really tempted to put them in charge of ground forces, but you might just want to organize up the Navy better. I'll do that off camera. And I think this is a good point. I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank you for liking the videos. I really do appreciate that. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Love to see you around more often. And of course, I really love hearing from you. So please post questions, comments, suggestions, ideas, corrections. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.